A warm welcome to Aviation this week on Channels Television, your home for happenings in the aviation sector. I'm Bukola Jo Ketumbi. The aviation sector in Nigeria is in crisis, no doubt, as airline capacity is now depleted with the suspension of aero contractors and Dana Airlines. The scarcity of foreign exchange has led to Air Peace leaving the Johannesburg route and Emirates reducing its schedule from August the 15th. Experts believe government must rally around the industry as the issue of liquidity is now a big factor in airline operations and the industry at large. For Dr. Anthony Kila, who is our guest on the interview segment, aviation must be taken more seriously in Nigeria as it is a basic essential infrastructure of a modern society. Our takeoff flight is set. The global aviation industry is a world in itself, encompassing a massive workforce and contributing a significant percentage to the global economy. The sector was set for major growth, challenges notwithstanding, but the pandemic hit, and this plummeted it to a considerable extent. Yet, it is fair to state that despite the economic impact of COVID-19 on the airline industry, it has been on the road to recovery. But here in Nigeria, skyrocketing aviation fuel prices, the scarcity of foreign exchange, and the temporary exit of two carriers is causing distress.
I mean, the industry is in crisis, no doubt. If you consider the fact that 3 years ago, you could buy fuel for 118 naira per liter, and we're talking 1,000 naira today. Exchange rate at the time was 150 naira to the dollar. Today we're talking 700 naira. So it's a huge leap in terms of, how far down we've gone. More airlines will not survive. That's the reality. And for as many airlines that are going to be out of a market, there will be a shortage of capacity. With a shortage of capacity, there will be a huge demand supply curve issue.
This flight display board at the MMA2 in Lagos shows the declining number of flights and the long delays being experienced. The consistent rising prices and shortage of Jet A1 appears to be driving airline operators to the brink as they make an appearance at the Minister of Aviation's office in the capital, Abuja.
We will approach government through NNPC and Duke Oil to ensure that that is sustained and that is made available. And the users of Jet A1, civil aviation and civil aviation only. So we would approach and try to get that done. And the foreign exchange, of course, you know where it sits. It's at the central bank and, of course, the Ministry for Planning, Finance and Budget and National Planning, and the Central Bank of Nigeria. Primarily, those are the sources. In the past, they had helped, but because of the significance and the importance of the sector, we would approach and ensure that we are able to get this foreign exchange at the official rate. That will help significantly the sector.
While the Minister of Aviation may have stepped into the situation, experts say local carriers must step out of the box.
How can we generate revenue out of the traditional seat selling? Use what you have to increase your bottom line. Once you have an airline, you become visible. Richard Branson became visible, more visible, when Virgin Atlantic came on board. So that's one thing airline does for you. And you have to understand, it's a highly technical industry, very, very expensive, and it's an industry that you must be adaptable to changes. You must spend a lot of money on research and development.
The loss of jobs in the sector is also creeping up.
As we speak today, no worker is remaining in aero, especially as concerning the membership of our unions. We had engagements with the aero management severally before this self-suspension. And this self-suspension, I believe, is a strategy. It's a strategy, yes, to avoid the hammer, the regulator's hammer.
We're in business, but the point is, where is the money to pay? The airlines are struggling. So, and we know. So it's a tough one. We're struggling, we are realistic with our staffs. Of course, we have not defaulted, but you know, in aircraft maintenance, we try to keep a particular percentage of our staff as our permanent staff. The rest are all on ad hoc. So we fly them in or we call them from Port Harcourt, Abuja, Kano, only when there's an aircraft on ground. So when they come in, if there's a C check for 4 weeks, we pay them for 4 weeks, they finish the check and they go back. Then we keep the post holders and the permanent staff as required by the NCAA regulation to keep the aircraft maintenance organization afloat and also healthy in terms of safety.
The local airline industry is not in this alone. Foreign carriers are feeling the heat as ticket fares soar.
The reality bites in your pocket, so it pinches right there, and you don't need anybody to tell you that this is biting hard, you know, on your finances. You just have to adjust. The aviation sector does not operate in isolation of these realities. The aviation sector, for one, is a sector that is hugely dependent on foreign exchange. So most of their consumables, their services are denominated in dollars. And what that means is that with the astronomical rise in dollar or the decline in the naira, the implication of that for their business is that a lot of them will have to reduce the number of their flights because, or rather they will have to increase the cost of their tickets. And what that means for the traveler is that they would also want to reduce the number of times they travel. What that will also mean for the airlines is that they will reduce the number of their flights because they have fewer passengers. That also has implications for revenue because these airlines bring revenue into the country.
Emirates Airlines is reducing its schedule into Nigeria come August 15, while Air Peace has withdrawn from the Johannesburg, South African route till October 8. This is not unconnected with the issues of foreign exchange and non-repatriation of international airline funds stuck in the country's economy. On our interview segment, Dr. Anthony Killer says finances are key to driving safety initiatives. It starts with 2 airlines out of operations and asks the question, who is next and what should be done for the ailing industry? There's more from him.
The dreaded question is who is next, but the trajectory is scary when we look at it because of the reasons that led to those ones. Aviation operators, even analysts, and especially regulators like to say and repeat that what matters in aviation is safety, safety, and safety. Yes, it is true, because it's quite a scary thing to fly. But here's the point we tend to miss. Before safety, there is finance. I argue that actually the core of aviation is finance. If you've ever tried to apply for a license before, you see the importance of finance. The reason why Aero is closing is finance. The reason why Dana is being accused of poor liquidity is finance. Aviation needs a lot of money, and it's not just any money, it's peculiar money, it's forex. So we have a situation where what is required of the world is expansion. What is required of the country is a quantum leap towards expansion. We need to open markets. We need to accelerate communication and intercommunication. We need to reduce space. And we have a situation where we have dwindling operations, less flight, high cost. That is chaos. That is crisis, and it's an emergency. For us to come out of this situation, I think we need to change our approach. Is that we really need to sit up and start to rethink and reset our aviation manners, the way we conceive aviation. There's a general misconception out there in the general public that aviation is for the elite, for the privileged, for the very few. And sadly, this mindset is reflected in the mind of some of the policymakers. I think those who can need to change that mindset. We need to review aviation not as something restricted to the elite or the privileged anymore, but rather as a basic, essential infrastructure of a modern society. That is what aviation is in general, if you look at the trajectory of the world. In Nigeria, in a specific case, given the size and structure of the country, aviation is crucial. There is, at the moment, a tendency for regulators in the aviation sector to be seen and felt only when they ground or when they suspend. That is wrong. We need to redefine the essence of regulators as people who want the services to be provided. The regulators of essential services do not suspend, do not ground, do not terminate. They might have to do it. And of course, when regulators ground or suspend, they make a case that can be summed up as better grounding than risk. In common sense, and in general terms, you cannot argue with that. Of course, you could reply that the road to hell is paved with good intention, but that would be a banter of weight. Let us not look at it that way. Let us look at it that aviation goes beyond common sense. It's a very technical, complex thing that requires vision, endurance, and detailed knowledge of the sector.
Cargo transportation is a very crucial segment of the Nigerian aviation industry and by extension its economic development. As at 2020, air cargo accounted for 35% of the movement of goods worldwide, and the International Air Transport Association recorded $6 trillion as airlines' contribution, out of which air cargo generated $111 billion. To push the frontiers of agricultural products moving by air, the Ogun State government began the construction of its cargo airport in the Peruremo area in 2021, a facility that was first initiated in 2007.
Since the governor of Ogun State came on board, one of his programs was economic prosperity, individual prosperity for the people of Ogun State. And this project was identified as one of those enablers that can lead to economic prosperity in Ogun State. And the governor also said this, that no project started by any of his predecessors that will add value to the people of Ogun State, especially economic value, the best interest of the people of Ogun State and our economy. This airport is one of such projects.
While the 5,000 square meters of land housing the airport is a construction area, the 4-kilometer runway is 85% complete for the Category E class airport.
The runway overall is 4 kilometers in length. Its total width, 60 meters. So the main runway itself is 45, shoulders on both sides, 7.5 meters. At the end of the runway, where you have the concrete turning part, you saw the thickness, the quality of the work ongoing. The concrete work is curing very well. You can't see any crack anywhere. So that attests to the quality of the work. We finished what is called the binder course, which is 130 mm of asphalt.
The runway is not the only infrastructure receiving attention. The control tower and fire station are also under construction, with the government's focus on building an aerotropolis.
The control tower is a 5-level control tower. We are now on the 3rd floor. So everything is being put in place to make it a unique control tower. It's going to be, there'll be a lot of construction going on. They work around the clock. And on the other side is the passenger terminal. You've seen the cargo terminal also.
Right from the scratch, we are taking on board officials from NCAA. We are taking on board officials from NAMA. We are taking on board officials from FAN. The Ministry of Aviation is also involved. So we want with other facilities that are coming. For instance, the African Development Bank, AFDB.
When the agro-cargo airport is commissioned later this year, it will be accessible through 6 locations, which includes the Lagos-Shagamu and Lagos-Ibadan Expressway, among others. When we return after the break, Newsflash is next. The effects of unremitted funds to foreign airlines will continue to lead to high airfares. That's coming from the chairman of Finch Glow Holdings, Mr. Bankole Bernard. The federal government, through the Central Bank of Nigeria, is withholding over $450 million in funds belonging to the carriers, a situation that has posed a serious problem to the operations of the carriers in country. Amsterdam Schiphol Airport has said that passenger cabs introduced for the summer season to cope with long waiting times and other logistical problems will be extended into September and October 2022. The airport will also continue other measures such as asking passengers to show up no more than 4 hours before their flight. Schiphol said it had warned airlines that it expects more passengers than it can handle during the Dutch autumn break in late October. KLM, the Dutch arm of Air France KLM, said the decision meant it would have to limit some ticket sales in the autumn.
Hundreds of meters above the village of Yenapeng in northern Ghana, the small drone locks its sights in 6 airplanes, not soaring through the cloudless sky, but parked in the middle of a verdant field miles away from the nearest runway. The drone's 16-year-old pilot, Jenokwen native Abdulateef Zakaria, stood with his father Dana in the shadow of a vintage Antonov crop duster, one of 6 planes that world-renowned artist Ibrahim Mahama brought to the village late last year.
I was born here, but I grew up in the capital in Accra. And Accra, over the years, you've come to understand that it's a bubble, like many centers of capital around the world. And the true work that needs to be done most often is actually in communities outside the centers of capital. You know, if you're able to do anything within these spaces that transform ideas, lives, and things like that, in the future, it means that it's going to make the entire country, or even the entire world, even a much better place.
Their grandeur, almost startling amid the flat and sparsely developed landscape, draws a daily stream of visitors to Red Clay Studio, the multi-acre compound that Mahama has for 3 years been building into an open-door communal education hub.
For me, it's very important, first and foremost, to be able to create an institution that is flat, that is horizontal, that can be able to reach different people regardless of their background they are coming from, class, struggle, whatever it is, political ideology and all that. At the end of the day, art is supposed to be able to create a space that would allow us to be able to go into a certain sense of dialogue, either with technology or with ecosystems or with architecture or any other thing.
Situated within the very community his father was born in, Red Clay is made up of several warehouse-sized buildings built from recycled materials and locally sourced red clay bricks. During the school year, crowds of students regularly thread Red Clay's towering halls, hearing lectures on history or conservation before exploring the gutted chassis of former commercial airliners. The material choices are typically of Mahama, who made a name for himself repurposing unwanted or discarded objects like shoe-shine boxes and industrial equipment into monolithic works of contemporary art.
We want to be able to build an institution that can reinforce the idea of thinking, collective thinking. Yeah, it's not so much about producing work that can also inspire artists, but produce thinkers. If children grow up and they can think differently from what their predecessors were thinking, it is a step towards a certain kind of eminent change within our society.
For Zachariah, who has made daily visits to Red Clay since he was 9 years old, the center is an opportunity for local children to explore topics otherwise closed to them, helping them build confidence and learn more about who they really are. To his father, Dana, who has developed a passion for aviation while working as Red Clay's caretaker, the planes are symbols of a brighter future.
I'm very happy because it is a future generation that we are sowing here. Everybody wants to sow a good seed. So when you sow good seeds, inshallah, tomorrow it will germinate.
Red clay is a symbol of the power that aviation holds for the mind.
Air cargo is indeed a trade facilitator that contributes to global economic development and creates millions of jobs. Air cargo transports over $6 trillion worth of goods, accounting for approximately 35% of world trade by value before the pandemic. During the pandemic, air cargo also saw a great climb owing to the absence of passenger movement. Some of the goods usually transferred by air include urgent and high-volume goods, intercontinental urgent mail, spare parts for land vehicles, spare parts for the aerospace industry, perishable food, materials for fairs and events, as well as plants. While these goods take advantage of speed, demand for air cargo fell in March 2022, according to IATA's data released in May. Some of the factors include China's zero-COVID policies and the Russia-Ukraine war, which weighed on demand and is threatening to become a longer-term hindrance.
What is happening in the world? Like China, they are in another phase of a lockdown, especially Guangzhou and Urumqi, where we have cargoes coming in, southern China. So they are under lockdown for a very long time, and up to now, the flights from there are still not coming as we speak. So that accounts for very low volume of cargo post-pandemic. And of recent, the Russia-Ukraine war has also affected the world supply chain. And by implication, we also have a lower cargo volume coming to Nigeria as well.
Global air cargo demand measured in cargo ton kilometers fell by 5.2% in March compared with the same month in 2021. IATA reports while capacity was up 1.2% on the same basis, the airline body notes that this is a significant decline from the year-on-year increase seen in February. With Asia and Europe experiencing the largest falls, so how does this apply to the local sector here?
It has a direct impact on our businesses, because our business in terms of revenue we get here has to do with the volume of cargo that comes in. So when the cargo volumes are not much, automatically we have lower revenue from that sector. Any export from Nigeria to EU or all those countries affected by war, we won't be able to send it. No, I know basically some flights will not be able to go to all these war-torn areas. How it affects export might not be. So export is also based on demand. And some of Nigerians that live abroad, most of the export that goes from here are consumables by Nigerians that live in those countries. So some of them are back home, some haven't gone back to the destination. So it's either here or there, but exports will not be like that affected as imports. Because most of them are household goods, not commercial per se.
When the purchasing power of people increase, they now begin to prioritize the expenses. And some of the things that are easily cut off is luxury items, entertainment, to start going down. So they just prioritize on those things, and then people will conserve cash.
Commodities shipped by air do have high values per unit or are very time sensitive. The demand for air freight is limited by cost, typically priced 4 to 5 times that of road transport and 12 to 16 times that of sea transport.
Because the price of aviation fuel has gone up, something that we used to bring from China, for example, at $7 per kg, is now going up as $10 per kg. And for Nigeria, we have a double jeopardy because of the exchange rate. So the exchange rate, most of the exchange rate we get now is from the black market, parallel market. CBN has excluded about 41 to 43 items that cannot access that particular CBN window.
Away from cargo business operations, major operators also play in the ground handling sector, which refers to the wide range of services provided to facilitate an aircraft's flight, which also includes both customer service and ramp service functions. Cargo handlers at airports have a critical role to play in keeping essential goods moving by providing appropriate equipment for unloading the different types of aircraft. This is our final destination on the program, and we leave you with this quote: never quit, never give up, fly it to the end. I'm Bukola Ju Oketumbi. See you next time.